All right, if you're into grilling or you just want to upgrade your next cookout, you need to check out Big Fork Brands. They make bacon sausage, not sausage with bacon bits in it, like actual bacon wrapped into premium pork sausage. Sounds delicious, right? It's nitrate-free, hardwood smoked, and they've got 5 flavors, like hickory and applewood, aged cheddar, maple and brown sugar. People are calling it life-changing, which sounds dramatic, but honestly, it's that good. They also make these Chicago-style sauces that combine all 7 toppings of a Chicago hot dog into one bottle. Super convenient. I've got you 20% off the highest discount they offer, code 10MM at bigforkbrands.com. That's bigforkbrands.com, code 10MM.
You're listening to 10 Minute Murder.
What would you do if the person you loved the most in this whole world was the same one who planned your murder? Terry Caffey survived 5 gunshots, a burning house, and the loss of his entire family, but nothing prepared him for what came next. Learning his own daughter might have orchestrated it all. Terry Caffey woke up to the bedroom door being violently slammed. Before he could process what was happening, gunfire erupted, the loudest sound he'd ever heard. His wife Penny was shot first, right there in bed next to him. Then came the stabbing, a samurai sword, over and over. Penny's injuries were so catastrophic she was nearly decapitated. Terry himself was shot 5 times. From down the hall, he heard his 13-year-old son Matthew screaming words that would haunt him forever. Charlie. Charlie, why are you doing this? No, Charlie. No, please. Why are you doing this? Matthew recognized his killer. 8-year-old Tyler was stabbed multiple times. The attackers left Terry for dead and set the house on fire. This was March 1st, 2008, in Alba, Texas. Population under 500 people. A place where everyone knows everyone and everyone knows your business. And Terry Caffey knew exactly who Charlie was. Terry was 41, a youth pastor at Miracle Faith Baptist Church. His wife Penny played piano there and sang in the local gospel group. They lived in a 2-story wooden cabin on 20 acres outside the neighboring town of Emory. Deep faith defined everything about their family. They'd homeschooled their 3 kids for years using a Bible-based curriculum. Matthew was studious, faithful. Tyler loved being outdoors. And Erin, their 16-year-old daughter, had been homeschooled partly because of an attention deficit disorder diagnosis. The Caffeys built a protective bubble around their children, strict boundaries, especially around dating and outside influences. They genuinely believed they were keeping their kids safe, giving them strong moral guidance. They had no idea that structure was about to detonate. Erin started dating an 18-year-old named Charlie James Wilkinson. For a while, her parents didn't see any red flags. Then Penny discovered Charlie's MySpace page. What she found there violated everything they were trying to teach their daughter. References to sex, profanity, the kind of content that made it clear this relationship wasn't going anywhere good. Terry and Penny sat Erin down. The relationship was over. No more Charlie. Most teenagers would have cried, slammed some doors, maybe snuck around behind their parents' backs. Erin Caffey decided her parents needed to die. When investigators started digging into Erin's history, they uncovered something that changed the entire narrative. Erin had dated someone before Charlie. When her parents disapproved of that relationship, she'd asked that boyfriend to kill her family. He said no. He broke up with her. This means the Caffey family murders weren't about Charlie Wilkinson specifically. They weren't about young love gone wrong or a teenage girl manipulated by an older boyfriend. Erin's solution to parental boundaries was murder. That was her pattern. That was her answer. She just needed to find someone who would say yes. Erin and Charlie spent about a month planning. They brought in 2 more people, 20-year-old Charles Allen Wade and his 18-year-old girlfriend, Bobby Gail Johnson. The plan was simple. Charlie and Wade would go inside and handle the violence. Erin and Bobby would wait down the road in the getaway car. During his police interrogation, Charlie said something that perfectly captured how warped this whole thing became. Quote, "I intended to kill them because I thought I was in love. The only way we could be together is to kill the parents." He genuinely believed this. Erin had convinced him, convinced all of them. At 3 a.m. on March 1st, they made their move. The violence that night went beyond execution. Someone shooting is one thing, but the way they killed Penny Caffey tells you something about the rage behind this. After shooting her, they stabbed her repeatedly with a samurai sword. The brutality was personal. It was excessive. This wasn't just about removing an obstacle. It was about punishment. Matthew's final moments were almost unbearable to think about. He was 13 years old, shot in the head, and in his last breaths, he's crying out to someone he knew, someone he probably trusted. "Charlie, why are you doing this?" There was no answer, just more violence. After killing Penny, Matthew, and Tyler, and shooting Terry multiple times, leaving him in a pool of blood, Charlie and Wade lit the house on fire. They thought everyone inside was dead. They were wrong. Terry Caffey should not have survived, but he had one thought burning brighter than the flames around him. He needed to live long enough in order to identify who did this. He'd seen Charlie Wilkinson shoot him and Penny in their bed. He knew. So he started crawling. Out of the burning house, through the yard, across the property toward his neighbors, Tommy and Helen's place. The distance was roughly 4 football fields in length. Shot 5 times, bleeding, in shock, it took him over an hour. He said there was a point where he physically could not go any further, where he just wanted to die, but he kept his eyes on the light in his neighbor's window. That light became everything. When he finally collapsed on their porch, they called 911. Because Terry survived and could name Charlie, police arrested all 4 suspects within 24 hours. They found them together in a mobile home owned by Wade. Terry was in the hospital when a Rains County sheriff walked into his room. The sheriff told him Erin was alive and safe. Relief. Finally, relief. Then the sheriff kept talking. Erin was in custody. She'd been involved. She'd planned it. Terry said there was no way, absolutely no way his daughter had anything to do with this. The entire community felt the same way. But the evidence kept piling up. Charlie and Wade both told investigators Erin was the mastermind. She was the one who wanted her parents dead. The prosecutor, Lisa Tanner, called Erin a murderer, pure and simple. Detective Allman used a different word, evil. When Terry heard that, he struggled. His daughter, evil? That didn't match the girl he thought he knew. But then they told him about the ex-boyfriend, about how this was the second time Erin had tried to orchestrate her own family's murder. The evidence was overwhelming. In the years since her conviction, Erin Caffey has told a different story. In interviews from prison, including one with Dr. Phil when she was 21, she consistently maintained she is the victim. She was manipulated by older people, that it was puppy love gone wrong. But the facts didn't support that narrative. She tried this before with a different boyfriend. This was premeditated, planned over the course of a month. It wasn't impulsive teenage emotion. It was calculated. Experts say Erin's insistence on being manipulated is strategic. She's building a narrative for parole, trying to reframe herself as a naive kid led astray rather than the architect of her own family's murder. The prosecution and law enforcement were clear. Erin was the manipulator, but Terry, in his grief and his faith, wanted to believe that there was some explanation, some way his little girl wasn't responsible for this horror. That tension between what the evidence showed and what a father's heart wanted to believe became part of the story. All 4 were charged with 3 counts of capital murder. Prosecutors said they wouldn't seek the death penalty for Erin because she was only 16, but they planned to pursue it for Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade. Then Terry did something that stunned everyone. He protested. He wrote letters. He visited the Attorney General's office. He argued that executing them wouldn't bring his family back. He said Jesus would have spared their lives. He wanted them to wake up every day and think about what they had done, think about whose lives they had taken, and eventually maybe find some remorse. The man who crawled through fire to identify his family's killers was now fighting to save their lives. All four took plea deals. Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade both got life without parole. Bobby Johnson, who stayed in the car and didn't use a weapon, got 40 years. Erin got 2 life sentences plus 25 years. But there's a critical legal difference. Because Erin was 16 when the murders happened, Texas law guarantees her the possibility of parole. Her first eligibility date is March 1st, 2038, when she'll be 59 years old. The men who physically stabbed and shot her family will die in prison. Erin won't. After the trials, Terry fell apart. Deep depression, consuming grief. He was filled with hatred, bitterness, rage. He thought about suicide. He fantasized about finding the killers and strangling them with his bare hands. But his faith wouldn't let him stay there. He realized that letting the anger destroy him meant they'd won twice. It would dishonor Penny, Matthew, and Tyler's memory. One day, Terry went back to the burned property alone. He stood in the ashes of his former life and stretched out his arms toward the sky. He demanded God tell him why. Why did he survive? Why did his family die? That's when he said he saw it. A scorched piece of paper clinging to a tree trunk. It was a page from one of Penny's books. The words said, "You're sovereign. You're in control." Terry took that as his answer, a direct message. It gave him a framework to process everything, to channel his rage into something else. Forgiveness didn't come immediately. It took months of continuous prayer, and he said forgiving Erin was actually easier than forgiving Charlie and Wade. But he did it. He said he forgave all of them. Terry physically recovered from his gunshot wounds. He remarried a woman named Karen. They have 1 biological child and 3 adopted sons. He's built a new life, a new family. He travels full-time now, sharing his story at schools and churches. He's turned his worst nightmare into a ministry, into a source of hope for people dealing with their own trauma. And every single month, Terry drives to the hobby unit of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and visits Erin. Every month. His daughter orchestrated the murder of his wife and sons, and he shows up for her anyway. 17 years later, this case still sparks debate. Erin Caffey, now 34, maintains she was manipulated. The evidence says otherwise. Bobby Johnson will be eligible for parole around 2028, which means Terry will have to engage with the parole board, provide victim impact statements, relive everything again. In 2038, Erin will have her first parole hearing. I'm sure Terry will be there. The Caffey family murders reshaped Alba and Emory, Texas. It's a case study in how teenage rebellion and calculation can turn into familicide. But it's also about what happens after, about the choice one man made not to let the worst moment of his life consume every moment that followed. Thanks for listening to 10-Minute Murder, bingeable true crime stories. My name is Joe. I'm the host. And this email comes from Ricky in Nashville. Subject, DIY detective training. Hey Joe, after binging your show, I started watching people in public like I'm profiling them. My wife told me to stop narrating our grocery store trips like I'm describing evidence. Do you think true crime fans secretly wish they could be investigators? Or are we just too curious for our own good? Ricky, I'm no expert here, but I would say it's more of the latter. I don't want to be an investigator. That's a job I don't think I have the stomach for. I'm a visual person, so I can read about these cases and they bother me, but I wouldn't be able to see them in person. And an investigator, you'd have to, at the minimum, see photos of crime scenes and things like that, day in and day out. I couldn't do that personally. Just reading about it is enough. And then when I'm doing research on the cases, sometimes I come across crime scene photos. Well, most of the time I come across crime scene photos, and I quickly avert my eyes away from anything that looks like it could be gross because I consume so much true crime stuff, I can't let that get into my brain, if that makes any sense. It would just be too much for me, overwhelming. Occasionally, I could probably handle it, but not day in and day out. Now, there are people, and I'm not knocking you for it, but there are people that like to look at the crime scene photos because they're genuinely curious about that kind of stuff. And I get it. That's fine. It's just not for me, which is why I could never be an investigator. So my answer is, I think we're just too curious. I'm very interested in the psychological aspect, the mental health, the background of the person who later commits these horrific acts, the childhood. How did they grow up? Was that a precursor to what they later did in life? That is the interesting part of each of these stories to me. And I'm pretty sure it comes across in my storytelling that part is very important. Hey, if you're a brand new listener to 10 Minute Murder, make sure you hit subscribe right now. You can go to 10minutemurder.com, see the blog. You can sign up for the newsletter that's officially up and going. We've got that thing humming along. So if you're not on the newsletter train, you need to go to 10minutemurder.com and find on this. I think it's on the side if you're on a computer, or at the very, very bottom if you're on a phone. You'll see it. Just sign up for Joe's List. And every week I send out a newsletter letting you know what stories are coming up on the podcast, plus anything else that I think you need to know about. If you're an OG listener, I love you with my whole heart. Please keep sharing the show to your friends and family, your neighbor, your dog walker, whoever you got that you think that you could be an influential source in their life, to let them know there's a cool true crime show that they're missing. Tell them about 10 Minute Murder. And that's going to do it. That's your episode for today. Thank you again for listening. I'll see you next time.
You're listening to 10 Minute Murder.
I really need to tell you about Big Fork Brands, because they make bacon sausage, which is about the most American thing I've ever heard. It's not sausage with bacon in it. It's bacon literally woven into premium pork sausage. 5 flavors, including maple and brown sugar, which is delicious. They also make the Chicago-style sauces that have all 7 toppings of a Chicago hot dog in one bottle, because apparently Chicagoans are tired of trying to open 7 different jars. And by the way, one reviewer called the bacon sausage life-changing, which feels dramatic, but it's probably accurate. Try it yourself and let me know. I've got you 20% off the best deal they offer, code 10MM at bigforkbrands.com. bigforkbrands.com. And it's very important to use the code so that you get the discount.